Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. What if the bank calls the loan? How can you own rental properties and sleep at night knowing that you own millions to a bank? Actually, it's a million and something. But it's good debt. And sometimes I wish I had more. I actually probably need to increase the amount of debt that I have because my loan to value ratio is a bit low for where I want it. I'm not getting as much levered appreciation or levered depreciation as I would like. But I got a question recently, and I get this question often. This is a version of that question where the person, Steve, or Stephen, with a V, so not Stephan. I'm always confused about that. I understand exactly what it looks like. I understand exactly, and it looks like it's a perfect plan to keep debt. But I have a question coming from my early days of Dave Ramsey. Are you worried about the bank calling the loans? This is what Dave Ramsey was talking about when he had over a million in loans. Let's just say we had a very, very, very bad year, and all the banks you have loans with need to be paid. Would or could they call the loan? So, this is a good question. I don't know that I would sleep at night if I sat here thinking that at any point in time, a banking professional can make a huge mistake with their own balance sheet and all of a sudden I need to send a bunch of money to the bank that I probably don't have, which would mean selling the property or filing bankruptcy. And a lot of people reference Dave Ramsey when it comes to debt. And Dave has some great advice for broke people in bad debt who are bad with money to help them get out of bad debt and hopefully stop racking up more. Where Dave loses me is in the middle of his baby steps, right? The first two are great, last one's great. But those ones in the middle, they don't really align with what I wanted to do. Dave, for the most part, doesn't believe good debt exists. And the problem with good debt is that a lot of people interpret what debt is, and I see it often. If you ask the people who have found Kiyosaki and read Forecast and have decided that financial freedom and true wealth can be created by using the bank's money, other people's money, other people's time, other people's resources, OPM, putting it to work so that you don't have to. I didn't make a lot of money. I was in kind of a bad starting position, and debt was the way to do it. When you initially find out about good debt, there's three types of debt. Most people will say there's only one type and it's all bad and you want to stay out of debt. There's actually cultures that are adverse to any type of debt. The debtee is slave to the debtor or something like that. All money is debt. That's all it is. When you have it, somebody else owes you for it. So most people are going to say all debt's bad. Some people will say that there's two types of debts because they found Robert Kiyosaki. And he explained that good debt, in its briefest explanation that most people get this far and then they stop listening. They hear that good debt is debt that makes more than it costs you to have. So it's debt that makes you money. And an example that I've tried to explain a few times, and I probably need to find a better one because this is a me problem, not a you problem. I'm not really good at explaining this. But let's say I had a trailer, like a semi-trailer, 53-foot semi-trailer, and you could buy it from me, and it would cost you $500 a month. You owe me the money for the trailer. And you could park the trailer on the side of the street and have somebody put a billboard on it that would pay you $1,000 a month. So you can make $1,000 a month, but you owe me $500 a month. Dave Ramsey would say, never do that. Never buy the trailer unless you can buy it all cash. But somebody who believes in good debt would say, well, if you could buy the trailer and the payment is only 500 and you can make 1,000, how many trailers can I buy? Right? 50 trailers at $500 a month. It's a lot of billboards. So that's the kindergarten simple version of there is a thing called good debt, but there's a thing called worse debt too, which I'll make another video about, or I have made a few videos about too, on the three types of debt. It's good debt, bad debt, and worse debt. But there's good debt that is also, I guess I'm gonna have to explain it in this video. Worst debt is bad debt that has an adjustable rate or an extremely high interest rate, right? So bad debt that doesn't make you money, that has a high interest rate, I would prioritize paying it off. Good debt that has a high interest rate, as long as it makes more than what it costs me, I don't care about the interest rate. I'd pay 1,000,000% interest if I was actually getting a good cash on cash return on my money. I don't care about the debt and I don't care about the interest rate. I care about my yield, which includes the debt and the interest rate. So when it comes to good debt, there are people who bought into the idea of good debt in 2005, 6, and 7, when everyone thought real estate only goes up, and they bought a bunch of properties, homes to live in or properties to rent, and it was bad, good debt, because that brief explanation that Robert Kiyosaki gives that people jump onto and don't do any more research is debt that makes more than it costs you. Rack up as much of it as you can. So I had a specific equation that I used when I was in growth mode, building my portfolio, still a wage slave trapped in a company. I wanted about 70% loan to value, right? I could handle rents going down. I could handle prices of properties going down. If I had to sell, I would get out without having to write a check. At 70%, I was still getting appreciation on multiples of what I invested. I was experiencing levered depreciation, being able to depreciate much more than I was making. So I've still not paid a penny in rental income tax, even though I get a couple $100,000 in profit, like 3 years in a row now, over 200,000 in profit. Still haven't paid a penny in rental income tax because I have levered depreciation. So these are the benefits of good debt in the short definition. What people in 2005, 6, and 7 didn't do is realize the aspects of good debt that can make it bad debt. If you buy a house and it makes more than it costs you, people will say that's good debt. Well, what if you have an adjustable rate? 2005, 6, and 7, a ton of people bought properties where it made sense, it cash flowed, or they can afford the house payment. And then the adjustment hit to the interest rate. And we had a recession where people got laid off. And so now people owed more on their houses than what it was worth. And the rate changed. So the payment went up. Some people couldn't afford it. The rent no longer covered it. You couldn't cash flow. Millions of foreclosures happened. So it's good debt that can go bad. What if you have a loan reevaluation period? This is why this question, what if the bank calls a loan, is so important to me. What if you have a loan reevaluation period? You buy a 20-unit apartment complex, and it's usually 7, but in 5, 7, or 10 years, the bank says your loan reevaluation period is in 5, 7, or 10 years. At that point in time, they're going to look at your property. Its value is based on its net operating income. The more your property makes, the more it's worth. It's not based on comps, like 4 units or less. It's based on how much money your property made versus how much your expenses were. So if you can lower your expenses, increase your income, you can increase the value of your property. Well, if your loan reevaluation period happens during a pandemic or stock market crash, an eviction moratorium, and your rent rolls are down, or you have some tenant turnovers going, and your net operating income is too low for the bank, it's too risky for them, they can call the loan. They can say, we don't like the ratio of how much you owe us versus how much you're making. You might even be profitable, but not enough to them. And they can call the loan. Or they can say, you need to write us a multiple 6-figure check to bring that ratio in line with what our fear will accept. Or they could say you have to refinance and you might end up having to sell. But if you're in a period of a stock market crash or a pandemic or an eviction moratorium and rents are down, you might not be able to sell for what you owe. And you'd be in the Dave Ramsey group of, you lost the properties and the bank called the loan. What if you buy properties with a balloon payment? 5 or 10 years, you're expecting appreciation to be enough for you to be able to refinance out a bunch of money and write a check to pay a balloon payment. These are all things that would keep me up at night. And I would have that feeling of the person who asked the question, what if the bank calls the loan? And so I'd probably still be working and I probably wouldn't own the rental properties that I do. I invest in the United States, specifically the Pacific Northwest and Washington State. One of the things I think is a superpower of the United States is we have a thing called 30-year fixed rate debt. And in some cases now it's 40-year fixed rate debt. I would do a 1,000-year fixed rate debt because the last thing I actually want is paid off properties. I don't want them. They would be very bad. It would reduce the amount of money that I make. It would probably make me work another decade if I went for paid off properties. And if I wanted to buy them without mortgages at all, I still wouldn't own one, not even one. Instead of having 18 rental units, living in one, renting out the other 17. So the 30-year fixed rate debt is the thing that I like. There's no loan reevaluation period. There's no net operating income review. There's no balloon payment. There's no adjustable interest rate, right? I want 30-year fixed rate debt. That's how you get rid of the interest rate. And the cool thing is, and this is the part I haven't said in a video before, but I want you to understand how important this is to me. And this is why, the superpower of the 30-year fixed rate debt. I don't owe a penny to a bank. I have well over $1 million in mortgages, but I don't owe a penny to a bank. I might write a check to a bank for one or two of my mortgages now. Some goes to a mortgage broker, some goes to, I think it went to Rocket Mortgage, who just bought Mr. Cooper, however the mortgages work. I owe money on a note. Here's the distinction. It absolutely has no bearing whatsoever on the note how the bank is performing. I don't want to owe money to a bank. That's a commercial loan. You owe, and there's probably a version of a commercial loan that's just like a note. The whole note market is not something I invest in, but that note, that commercial loan has the evaluation period, the adjustable rate, the balloon payment, all his options. There is 30-year fixed rate debt for that as well. I didn't know about it when I was investing in the beginning, and I ended up with conventional loans in my own name, long list of reasons for no LLC. If the bank I'm dealing with is failing, meaning they don't have the ratios that the FDIC requires or the government requires for them to keep their license, and the bank has to close down, like several banks did a few years ago when they invested too much in crypto. So if the banks can't do that successfully, why do you think you're so special and you're not going to lose any money? The banks sell the note to somebody else. So even if the bank closes down, goes so financially bankrupt that the bank shuts down, I still owe just as much money on my note that now somebody else owns. There is no calling the loan on 30-year fixed rate debt in the United States. Now, the thing that Dave Ramsey leaves out when he was, I think, 26 or 27 years old and had over $1 million in loans is that he was using, no kidding, Google this to prove it, 90-day debt. He was doing versions of the Burr strategy or hard money, where he would borrow money where he had to refinance within 90 days once the rehab or the upgrade or something was done. And he was actually doing it successfully. He was doing what he said he would, but the banks didn't like the level of risk. So they didn't renew the refinance portion of his strategy. So they didn't actually call the loan. They just said, you can't get the next loan that solves this problem. Essentially, it's the same as calling the loan. He had to pay all the money back and couldn't refinance, couldn't own the asset, went bankrupt. Don't do that. Don't do 90-day debt. Don't do 5-year fixed rate debt like we have to in Canada or the UK. There might be fixed rate debt there, but the most common type of mortgage I've heard is 5-year adjustable rate mortgages. It's not 5-year fixed rate debt. Fixed rate means it doesn't change for the duration of the debt. It's 5-year adjustable rate, meaning in 5 years, the rate can go down or triple. Don't do balloon payments. I'm the lazy investor. All my properties are from the MLS. All my loans are conventional. 30-year fixed rate debt, where I don't care how the banking industry is doing. I don't care how the government's failing. One of the things I'll be making a video about soon is think about this concept. And I'll put this into like a 10-minute video. If the dollar is failing, the dollar is losing value to inflation. There is the BRICS community of other countries is trying to take the US currency away from the reserve currency of the world. If that's happening, why wouldn't you want to own millions of dollars in notes that you owe because it's losing value? You get to borrow something that's easier to pay off in the future. That's the solution to the debt crisis. More debt in something that's losing value because you own the assets that it then takes more of the currency to buy. I hope this answered Steve's question on how I sleep like a baby at night and not the one that wakes up every hour and a half screaming. But I sleep like a baby knowing my loans can't be called because they're 30-year fixed rate debt. I have good debt, meaning it makes more than it costs me. I don't have any of the things that can turn my good debt into bad debt, like an adjustment period, an adjustable interest rate, a loan revaluation period, or a balloon payment. I keep my ratio to where I'm not over levered. I can handle rents going down by 50%, and then you can Google it. I'll do it for you. This is, and I'll just show you what I'm typing in here. Show me the part since 1940 where rents went down. But I've invested and planned like they will. This era right here, this 2010, 11, and 12, if you notice, was the biggest jumps in rent. What happens when millions of homeowners can't buy? What happens when millions of homeowners go through foreclosures? You have less people buying and more people forcing up rents because there's more demand on an already limited supply. But I've invested as though I plan on seeing rents coming down. I've invested on thinking I have a prolonged eviction on several of my properties. So yes, there is good debt, but there is a ratio to make sure you maintain. I probably should have recorded that as a separate video to release on another day. Uh, but there you go, Steve. That's how I feel about will the banks call the loan. The rest of this video is going to be dedicated to answering your questions. BuzzTune does a super chat here. It's much appreciated. It helps the algorithm realize that somebody, maybe two somebodies, likes the content. May 8th, Thursday at 6:15 Pacific, Millennial Mike debate on the Raging Tomato. So towards the end of this video, maybe somebody can put a link into that channel so people can make sure they're ready, or it's there already. Perfect. Thanks, Mikey. We did a practice debate while I was in Portugal. I don't know if I did so well because it was like 1 o'clock in the morning for me, but because at about that point in time, it's almost time for bed. Just never my own. Martin Properties. Howdy. My second handyman in a row that has an SUV type vehicle. What happened to guys with trucks? How do they haul material? Anyway, first in a long time. Nice. Good question. I have one handyman that I know that works with a truck. One has a van. Frank, old guy, I has vans. If you have a Lowe's Pro credit card or a business credit card, anything that you want delivered is $20. I wouldn't need a truck. I'm actually at the point where I don't know if I need a truck in the future. I'm not ready to give one up because I like trucks, but I don't know that my handyman needs it because the delivery fees are so much less than they were in the past. What I want to do is make sure that their vehicle can hold the tools, the chop saw, the tile saw, uh, everything else they might need to do the work at my house. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm more worried about the type of people who become handymen and that it seems like I meet them when they're good at their job and hungry for money. So they do several jobs in a row that are decent. And then either it's like there's a pendulum of God says, let's see what happens. Their life spirals out of control and they start slowly not showing up for jobs or taking money and not doing jobs and screwing people over. And then their life spirals completely out of control and you lose contact with them. Or they get their life together enough to where they become a contractor or get a full-time job with a construction company and they're not handyman anymore. So it's like a constantly revolving handyman group of people to work with where when you find one that the one of the reasons they're handyman is they don't do a normal schedule. So if you can get one that shows up most of the time, gives you a fair price, but does good work and keeps your customers, your tenants happy, hold on to them, tip them, hire them for easy jobs. If they ever reach out and say, do you have any work available? I don't have any work planned, meaning that they're out of money. Have some work for them. Have something that's on your back burner that you're like, okay, that's not worth doing, but eventually I'll probably get to it either when a handyman goes out there or if a handyman reaches out and says, I need work. I've got a list of a few things that can be done at any point in time. 24 Hills. Howdy. I knew of a handyman that rides a bicycle with trailer. If he needed big things, he would rent the Home Depot truck. There you go. Nice. Wayne Wong. Howdy. The Scorpion. 360. Howdy. 360 Scorpion. I don't know. It would be fun. Jason. Howdy. Matthew, good to see you here. Started a handyman business to make extra money to buy properties. There you go. And once you have enough properties, you'll probably dip out of being a handyman. And the people who've been relying on you will go, where'd he go? ML, howdy. Stephen, I knew you were going to make a video on this. Awesome. Thank you for asking the question. It's appreciated. And hopefully my answer helped. Chester, good to see you. Josh, don't get a loan the banks can call in the first place. Very good advice. The only time it makes sense to me, and I have respect for people who do it, and I think it's a solid strategy, right? The less a man makes declarative statements, the less apt he is to look foolish in retrospect. So I don't do the thing where I say, I would never get a loan with this. I would never invest in stocks. I say, I haven't, I don't, I prefer not to. But someone like Matt, the lumberjack landlord, or Michael Zuber, right? 180 units, 140 units, whatever their unit count is right now, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in cash flow. A small percentage of their portfolio, $1 to $5 million probably, and almost not recognizable percentage of their portfolio has an adjustable rate, has a balloon payment, has a reevaluation period. If it blows up in their face, they're like, oh, let's write a check. When they would write those, now it's just, log into the account and send the money. But if you're like me and you're just one of the plebes, and most of my years of working never made more than $60,000 till the last couple, and I have a portfolio gross value is probably just under 7 million, net worth is just over 3 million. I don't want to have to write multiple six-figure checks to fix a balloon payment or anything. So I'm not at the point where I would do that. I did finally buy my first stocks. I don't like it. I just saw something on sale and thought, my portfolio is large enough. I'm not in growth mode. So I will take 1% of my net worth and dollar cost average $1,000 a day into this one specific stock that I know was on sale, knowing nothing about stocks, knowing I'm probably going to lose every penny that I put into this. So don't do what I do. I put $1,000 a day in there until either one of two things happens. And I'm coming up close to one of those things happening. First, if the stock goes back up above 300, I'm probably going to stop buying. Or if I invest $1,000 a day and I hit 1% of my net worth, which is just a little over a month from start to finish, which I'm coming up on, I think I should do the math on if I'm there or not, I'm going to stop buying. I don't want to risk more than 1% of my net worth on a stock because I am not a stock guy, not a buckets guy, not a 4% rule guy. I just know that if somebody's protesting a company based on a temporary position in a government agency, protests aren't going to last forever. And a stock losing 70% of its value is going to recover. Or it will drop to zero and I will lose every penny that I put in there. And I won't care because it's that small part of the portfolio. So don't do what I did, especially in growth mode. If you're a stock investor, in the description below, there is a link to Robinhood where you can get up to, they say it's somewhere between $500 and $1,500 worth of a stock. If you purchase, it's $5. It's going to be $5. I haven't seen anything else but that. Financial firefighter, Mark, howdy. Fun debate this morning. It was great. I look forward to doing something like that again in the future. We debated what matters more, net worth or cash flow. Cash flow is freeing. Howdy. Mikey, good to see you there too. Northwest desert rats. Is there a Northwest desert? I guess Eastern Washington. It's kind of desert rat. Interesting. Like the name. RATZ, rats. Is that your last name? That's how I usually see the name spelled that way. Deconstructing Dreams, a financial journey. Howdy, and from Marino. Josh Burdick, fixed rate long-term debt for me. Exactly. Me too. Ryan, all-nighter hider. Good to see you here. Flavio, good afternoon, everyone, from Grandview, Washington. You asked a question earlier, Flavio, during the debate on Mark's channel. How do I feel about 7% rent cap. I'll be making a standalone video on how that's going to at least triple how much money I make from my rentals in profit. Josh Burdick, howdy. Good to see you here. Spokane, is that considered a desert on the eastern side? Northwest Desert Rats. There could be a due on transfer clause if you put a property in LLC. It's a transfer. You should see all of the videos I have on LLCs and how that's one of the things I reference. Anna K, howdy. How are you? 4 types of debt. Ex-wife is 4. Is what I consider an ex-wife debt. Do I have 5 debts on top of the other debts? Nice. Laura, good evening, everyone. 40 watching and only 3 likes. Please hit the like button. If you don't like my content, hit the dislike button twice so I knew for sure that you meant it. Thank you for that. Remember, every time you hit the like button, an angel gets its wings. JR, what accounting software is everyone using? What pros and cons do you experience? Accounting software. In my binder course at diontalk.com, I give away a free copy of my spreadsheet, which is the almost totality of my entire business operations as far as money goes. It's a spreadsheet. Me and the CPA that I use built it together so it has the columns I was looking for, so I can differentiate properties and know what's being spent where. And it has all of the columns that CPA needs to file the taxes. That's it. No software. Don't need it. Don't want it. Doesn't help me make decisions. Adds to my workload if I add it. Not interested. I have 18 rental units on 8 properties. That works for me. I think if I had more than 50 units, I'd probably start looking at software or hiring somebody to manage that kind of stuff. One of the reasons why I don't want more properties. I don't want a large portfolio. I want the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of doors. Not even sure I want to keep the 18 that I have. I haven't sold any. Currently, my goal is that my properties perform better than my marriages. Until death do us part. Remember, a successful marriage ends in death. I haven't had one of those yet. Stephen, thank you. Theodore, howdy. Every time I see the name Theodore, I think of the movie 4 Rooms. This is why I'd never do subject to. Yeah, the subject to, I don't want to make a video on it on its own because Pace Morby already doesn't like me. Good backstory there. He's very successful. I'm just not a motivated, hard charger, hustle culture type of person. I'm the lazy guy. And it's okay for us to be different. I wish he understood that. But subject to made sense when property values were going up quick and interest rates were coming down. Because if you did a subject to and you bought somebody's property subject to, and the interest rate that you were at was a 5, and 6 months later, it's lower. If the bank calls the loan, you would be forced to refinance at a lower interest rate. What are the odds? They're just going to leave it alone. Well, since 2020, property values went up. They're slowing down in the up process now. My state is still up 10% year over year from this time last year. But interest rates aren't going down, they're going up. So now if you buy a property and 6 months later, you bought one at 5 and 6 months later it's worth, if you had to refinance, you'd have a 6 or a 7. The odds that the lender can do math means that it's more likely they call the loan on a subject to clause, the due on sale clause, the transfer to an LLC, the transfer from one to another. So a lot of investing has a season. And I'm probably never going to buy a different stock. The stock that went on sale has a season right now because of some protests. Subject to had a season. This is just my opinion. When interest rates were going down and prices were going up, Burr had a season. Interest rates going down, price going up. The longer it took you to do it, the more of your mistakes the market fixed. I do what's called evergreen investing. It doesn't have a season. I buy a property that doesn't lose money. I use fixed rate debt, and I hold it long term. If I bought in 2008 at the peak of the market, by 2014, people were saying that I wish I did the same thing. Wealth with Rentals. Howdy. Arlen. Howdy. That is a cool name. I don't know if I can pronounce your last name. Neuendorf. I'm 29 years old with 4 properties. That freaking congratulations. That's pretty cool. Remember, something like 90% of real estate agents never own one rental. So if you've got four, I'll even take your age out. Doesn't matter. 60, 18, 29. You got four properties. Good job. That's impressive. Three of them are paid off. Do you think I should refinance them at a higher rate or wait and sell to do a 1031? How are they cash flowing? Like, why would you sell it? Here's the litmus test that I use, Arlen. So welcome to the channel because I don't recognize your name. Hopefully my memory is not just failing me. But if so here's how I'd go on whether I would keep or sell a property. Take one of your properties that you had, and it's paid off now, so it's a little different. But let's say you've owned it long enough to pay it off. What if the property across the street was for sale? Identical, absolutely the same. And you could buy it for what you purchased the one you own for. So if you have it long enough to pay off, I'll say you've probably had it since 2000, 2005, just rough guess. If you just normally paid off a 30-year debt, a little bit of money earlier to split payments every month or something like that. In 2005, the property value, if the average house right now in my state is like 700,000, in 2000 it was 300,000, and you could buy it at the interest rate that you bought it for the price that you bought it, would you buy the one across the street? If the answer to that is I would absolutely buy another one just like it across the street for the price that I paid, for the interest rate that I paid, why would you sell it? That's the first thing. Now, if I say, would you buy the one across the street if you could buy it for what you paid at the interest rate you paid? And you say, no, I wouldn't do it. It was way too much work. It's a bad neighborhood. I don't like it. If you wouldn't own another one for the same price at the same interest rate, now maybe you'll sell it. Then when it comes to selling, what's the goal with the income? Are you confident in your ability to find a 1031 that's actually going to get a return, going to make you money? Find the deal that you'll close on so that you don't incur. There won't be much depreciation recapture because if you've had it long enough to pay it off, the price of the value of the property that you've depreciated isn't as much as it's worth now. There will be capital gains tax. How are you going to mitigate that? So, can you 1031? Are you confident you would find a deal? Will it increase your cash flow? Three paid off properties? No. My opinion, it's not a mistake. It's just I paid off a property and it cost me $1 million. That doesn't mean I don't still own the property. It's paid off. It's rented to a Section 8 tenant about $3,000 a month. Uh, I'm not getting rid of it. I probably could increase my income if I sold it, use that money as a down payment on a fourplex. I'd probably make a little bit more every month. But I have a dialed in tenant that I've talked to October, I think, when we I texted in October, emailed in December to renew the lease through email. Like, I'm not messing with that. That's over $2,000 a month into my bank after everything. Uh, Internet says it's messing up. Sorry if I'm lagging. That's it. It goes black. Should have shared my screen. It goes black and it says, "Oh snap!" That's YouTube's answer to, "Hey, there's a glitch." Next time it does that, I'm going to share my screen because I've only seen it once or twice. Uh, I hope that helps, Arlen. I'm a fan, the slow and lazy, of save a down payment, buy the next property. Don't pay the debt off early. That's my strategy that I like. It's not sexy. It's kind of boring. Me and my portfolio have the same four words in common: not sexy and boring. Uh, but that financial freedom, though, that not having to work again, that not having dozens or hundreds of tenants to manage, it's a beautiful thing. Uh, does for sure. Does for Shazer? It's a cool name. Subscribe. Howdy. Welcome to the channel. It's we're on the dark side here. We have cookies, and I recommend having a beverage because I use words that some people don't like accountability. Denise, howdy. Hello, everyone. New subscriber here. I saw you on Erica Williams' podcast. Great information. Thank you. Erica was great. She was super impressive. I was glad to talk to her. It's always cool to get on a channel that I've watched, right? That's always fun. I have a interview coming up like the 13th, I think, on a channel I hadn't heard of until they reached out. Now I'm going to watch some of their content before I go on there. And I've been invited on channels in the past and then reached out and said, hey, thanks for the invite. I see you have a couple 100,000 subscribers, but I don't like your content. So I'm not going to come on. I'm not here to grow a channel. I'm here to help the few people who are ready to make decisions that make their financial future better. King Nick. Howdy. King. I like it. First tenants a year ago were wonderful. However, have new tenants who missed their rent deadline for this month, missed the 5-day grace period. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's conversation. Tomorrow's conversation comes with an eviction form. File a, whatever your state says, 3-day pay or quit, 14-day pay or quit, whatever it is, what's required. If you have an FHA loan or a conventional loan that's FHA, Fannie Freddie backed, sometimes some states require 30-day notice, but you file it immediately. Not because you're a dick. Like I said, I use words some people don't like. Not because you're mean, because you have to treat all of your tenants the same. And if you get a gut feeling that a tenant in the future is going to be one you have to go through an eviction, you file it sooner and they can go through your records and prove that you haven't done that with everybody, you can be sued for discrimination. But you treat everybody the same. And when you hand them that, here's your you're past the grace period eviction paperwork. This paperwork makes you eligible for some rental assistance programs that are out there. And anytime your rent is late, I'm going to serve this paper. It also starts the ticking clock in case this goes sideways and you have to go through an eviction. Why delay? Because you are going to have probably a month or two. I have a friend who's gone through her fourth eviction on the same unit. Like, I invested for about a decade and she was like, oh, I'm going to buy a rental. And I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. I've been 10 years. I haven't gone through an eviction. And she's owned it for like 3 years, had 4 evictions. First one was 21 days. This one was 29 days start to finish. Uh, so it happens. And the sooner you start it, the better. And you might help them get rental assistance, which is often the solution. And then you also, King Nick, be human, have some empathy. They might have a justifiable spouse passed away. They just had a baby, whatever the thing is. Listen to them. You still serve the paper. You can choose to not file it with the courts in the future, but serve the paper to help them possibly receive rental assistance. And remind them these two things. This is the conversation that stopped me from having a later missing rent payment for over 10 years. Now, my first year, I didn't know this. I got kicked in the teeth over and over and over by my tenant. So it's not like I started out knowing this. Learned this over time. I just saw CNBC in the chat and I don't want to read it because step away from the NBC. The squirrel ran off with the Emperor's Groove. Hang on. The two things that have stopped me from so far having a later missed rent payment, because a lot of times tenants come to you and they are thinking, okay, I rent from this person who's not a property manager, it's not an office person. This is somebody who has emotions, and maybe I can play on them because they go, if I don't pay my cell phone bill, they take it away. They turn it off. If I don't pay the internet, I can't stream anything. If I don't pay for my car, they repossessed it. Maybe I can have the rent late because paying it later gives them more time to make money, makes today easier. Well, if they realize you're going to serve an eviction form the day after the grace period, maybe you're kind of not at the bottom of the list of let's play with their emotions. That's the first thing. The second thing is I explained to the tenants in your conversation that you might want to have tomorrow. This is called the math of time, not the retiring math of time, but the tenant math of time. The conversation from me to the tenant at some point will include what I'm about to say. So, begin quote. Most months as a renter, we have about 4 weeks to get the rent together for next month. And I understand you're having a challenge right now. And if you could pay the rent a week late, that might make this month easier. But then I'm setting you up to actually get evicted because you only have 3 weeks to get the full amount of rent together for next month, which would start a spiral that will end up with you getting evicted. End quote. So that conversation and the being told the day after the grace period, I'm serving eviction in advance when because often they reach out and they say, hey, I need to pay the rent late, right? I get that question often. It's never actually followed through to where it happened. Hopefully that helps you with your conversation tomorrow. Dark Spring, howdy. Sounds like a gamer tag. Oh, also, and this, for anybody who's paying attention, right here, it says there's 75 people giving away a free Audible book to the first person who types in the chat exactly what this is that my finger is touching. Good luck. Doesn't have to be a financial book. Doesn't have to be one rental at a time or 15 conversations with real estate millionaires that Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time wrote, and I narrated for Audible, which was a very cool experience that I will never do again. Don't make declarative statements. Less apt to look foolish in retrospect. I'll probably do another one. If the lumberjack landlord or Millennial Mike or somebody like that writes a book, I'll probably narrate it for him if they would let me. I don't know. Maybe my voice sucks. Darkspring, I had to laugh at your title. Dave Ramsey did 90-day loans for 30-year loans. If banks can call your 30-year loans, I think we have a bigger things to worry about. Exactly. Thank you. And if you get a chance to watch the beginning of the video, it's almost word for word what I said. So love it. Michael Anthony, howdy. CNBC always announcing tariffs that the CEO on PFE said tariffs didn't lie by 2 quarters in a row, beating each other time with CEO raised both on those quarters that pop both times. It's always impressive how much more CEOs make when their company's struggling. I don't get it. It's almost like we don't get the real data. C, howdy. As a first-time house hacker, do you recommend buying a duplex with a tenant already in one unit or buying it empty? Good question. Let me process it for a second. First-time house hacking, is this your first rental too, right? So you're just first time, first property, house hack. Correct me if that's not what it was. I purchased a duplex with a tenant in the other side. I was working full-time and raising 3 kids. I don't want to buy a job. Even if it's rent ready, finding a lease, screening tenants, advertising a listing, all of that was extra work. If I could buy a place with a tenant in place, the impetus of the binder strategy was I was targeting properties that had tenants in place. A lot of times investors want to buy it empty. So if there's a tenant in place, I've removed some of my competition. A lot of times with a tenant in place, it's a tired landlord. They are in their 60s or 70s or even 80s, and they've been doing this a long time. They haven't been maintaining or updating the property. They don't want to raise the rent on an existing tenant and lose a good tenant, or they feel like they've developed a friendship with them over the years and they don't want to raise their rent. So the rent's low, eliminating more of my competition. When you buy the property, you're bound by the existing lease. So you can't just go do the binder strategy day one. You can, after a couple of months, as you've done improvements to the property. I do coded locks, motion sensor LED lights, look at the inspection report, see if there's anything to fix, actually ask the tenant if you owned the place, what's the first thing you would fix? They'll sometimes say something super simple like, I'd really like a screen door so I can have the door open in the summer, or that ceiling fan squeaks. Make a simple repair. Tenant's happy, they know you're going to maintain the place. And then you have the binder strategy, and you're more likely to get a bigger increase. You could buy a place with a tenant in place that you're going to go through an eviction. Do you have the reserves for that? Do you know how long an eviction takes in your market? Do you know how to find a good eviction attorney in your market? And what would happen if you ended up going through an eviction with the person right next door? Can you handle that? Can you mitigate the risks? And are you prepared for worst case scenario? It was my preference. It's what I did. I bought my fourplex with tenants in place when I house hacked the second time. When I bought my third house hack, my last one so far, there were no tenants here. No, there was an owner and an empty unit. So I have purchased a complete gut rehab one time, not doing that again, with no tenants in place. So I preferred tenants in place. All the other purchases were rental properties. Trying to think how many I purchased that were vacant. That almost always had a tenant in place. One, probably 3 times I've purchased with units available, not all, but 1 or 2 of them. So I almost always like to buy tenants in place. Good question. Thank you. Welcome, Dawser. Great to have you. Thank you. It's a great debate. Everyone was a winner. Yeah, I totally agree. It was a friendly debate. We disagreed and we agreed at the same time. Here in Southern California, my home is almost paid off, worth 400,000. Wondering if I should refinance, pull out money, and buy a few rentals. No experience in rentals, and 645 mortgage is pretty rad. $645 mortgage is pretty rad. Great question. Again, welcome to the channel. Good to see you here. We have cookies. Hopefully the noise isn't being picked up by the mic. I'm so lazy. My lawn care guy's here. Do you mow your lawn? Absolutely. By giving some of the rent money I've collected to the guy who's going to mow the lawn. Uh, Growth phase is totally different than retired phase. In growth phase, I'm the one out there mowing the lawn. But not anymore. So there's a logic chain I like to bring people down whenever they make a decision. The first one that I talked about earlier is, hey, would you sell a house or keep a house? So I've got that kind of questions you go through. So here's the way I would go on. You have what I believe from your statement, you probably call equity, the ability to pull out money. And I want to redefine a part of your brain. So I want to reach into your brain and just pull out this part from the caveman brain and throw it away. Let's redefine equity, pull out money. What you have is the ability. So, does for Shazer, please write this down. I know it's kind of a joke. Text it to yourself if you don't have a pen. You have the ability to add debt to an existing asset. That's how I define what everyone else calls equity, or the ability to pull out money. You're not pulling money out, you're adding debt to an asset. So the first part of the logic chain is, how do you pull the debt out? Right? It can be, you can sell it. It's a primary residence. If you're single, I mean smart, you can pull out you can make up to $250,000 in capital gains, pay zero taxes. If you're married, you can make up to $500,000 in capital gains, pay zero taxes, buy the properties. If you do a home equity line of credit, it's like a credit card. You add the debt to the ability to add the debt to a certain amount. You use what you want to buy the rentals, and then you have to pay it back. It'll have an adjustable rate. And some people will say, oh, it's not adjustable rate. It has a 10-year fixed rate. No. It's the same interest rate for 10 years, but then it adjusts. Can you pay it off before the rate adjusts? Maybe it's a 5-year, maybe it's a 3 or 7-year, whatever. Do you make enough money to pay that off before the rate adjusts? Because the interest rate in 5, 7, or 10 years can be 30%. It's never going to happen, but that's the possibility we need to think of, is how high could interest rates go to make this deal blow up in my face? That's possible. It might be 10%, 14%, or 18%, but that can happen. So that's the HELOC strategy. The second one is, well, you could take out a mortgage. Well, right now, you might have low interest rate and a small mortgage. And if you get remortgage it, take all the money to buy rentals, you get a new interest rate of whatever today's rate is, 6.5, 7, something like that, on all of that debt. So I wouldn't do a refinance. I might do a second mortgage. So leave the current amount of debt alone, so you don't touch it. The new mortgage has the higher interest rate. You use that money to buy 30-year fixed rate debt. So that's the thing, is how do you add debt to the asset? The other thing is, are you confident in your ability to find a deal that you know you're going to get a return on that justifies the investment in the new property, the risk and the work that goes with that, and the reduced cash flow, the extra payments on the place where you added the debt? You don't. When you're starting, you're almost like 90% of your mistakes are going to happen in those first 2 to 3 years. You're going to forget to do things like have the sewer line scoped in an inspection, which is actually an add-on that you have to ask for. You're going to not know how to negotiate the best interest rates. Probably calculating the yield or your cash on cash return is a skill you might not have mastered yet, or know which markets you want to invest in based on what research you did, where you have the trusted boots on the ground, how the market's shifting, all of those things. There's so many skills to learn that our biggest risks happen in our first couple of deals. I wouldn't want you to put your house or your retirement accounts or anything like that at risk in the beginning. What I would like you to do is take some time. This is not a race. Well, if it is a race, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Save up a down payment, save the reserves, get better with your money, get your money right. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time, another YouTube channel, has I don't know if it's a free course or a $100 course or something on get your money right. So understand your credit score, understand how to increase your income, reduce your expenses, get good with money, because it's not like you're going to buy properties and all of a sudden know how to manage money. Do that first, and then buy a rental. Lenders are going to want you to have some experience before they'll lend you more money. They want you to have a good debt to income ratio on conventional loans. There's other options like DSCR loans or seller financing, which is more stuff to study. There's a mountain of knowledge we need to absorb in the beginning. At least the people who end up being successful tend to educate themselves. Once you get your money right and you buy a rental and you get rental income on your tax returns for 2 years, it becomes a lot easier to buy the next rental. And it's slow. Like I said earlier, it's 4 words that describe me and my portfolio: boring and not sexy. Yeah, it's a 10-year journey. The first 2 to 6 years are going to be slow and boring. That last 4 years is a lot more fun. Uh, so I wouldn't touch the equity. I wouldn't add debt to your existing asset. I'd be saving, learning how to get good with my money. I wouldn't listen to all of the people that you're going to hear that say never invest in California because we all call it California and your rental rules are terrible. No, I specifically would target outside of LA County, outside of the county that San Francisco's in, that the city. Uh, my brother invests in Kern County and in Washington State. So Kern County towards Bakersfield, Roseman, Mojave, got Edwards Air Force Base out there. You've got Taft. You've got a ton of places where the price to rent ratios make sense. Reba, a friend of mine, that's been on my channel before, invests near the Bakersfield area and is doing great. So a lot of people say, I live in California. I have to invest at a distance. No, find the market. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time lived in Silicon Valley. Did he invest there? No. He went an hour and a half or 2 hours away to Fresno, grew a portfolio of 180 rentals. It took decades, but he did it in California and then moved to Vegas for the tax benefits for his other income. Nice. I've got handyman. I will pay in a minute. That's managing a rental portfolio. Uh, Denise, hit the like button. Thank you. Can see the angels getting their wings. Brought to you by your friendly atheist. Actually, more of an anti-theist, but ML. Nashville is raising property taxes. I will try to appeal if possible. What is your experience? Property taxes go up and down, some years up, some years down. Washington just voted in the ability to triple property taxes and instituted rent control, which if you're new to the channel, because there's a couple of people here who are new to the channel, this was almost the title of today's video. Washington State passed rent control. How it's going to triple my income, because that's what happens. Property taxes, you can negotiate. They're going to tend to go up in the future. The most important thing, ML, I've got a few opinions that are a little backwards. I've actually been on BiggerPockets, and my last one with Dave Myers was an episode called Dionisms, Things I Do Backwards. I want my leases to end in the winter, not the summer. I have a lot of reasons. I don't want to have any one of my properties in an LLC. I have a long list of reasons for that. Like I'm just kind of the backwards guy. I'm lazy, not a motivated hard charger. I was in the Marines. At that point in time, I was, but as an investor, I'm not that guy. I'm the lazy investor. When it comes to property taxes, here's the biggest mistake that people make. And I found this doing research just before I retired. I wanted to know why people lost their rentals. Even Graham Stephan lost his rentals. Not all of them, just some of them. He had to sell them. He said, I'd make more money if I buried my money in my backyard. Graham Stephan, YouTube, big channel. Watch him all the time. Ton of great information. I like his earlier stuff, not so much the reacting to videos, but he still puts out a really good financial type video every couple of weeks. So I recommend Graham Stephan. The biggest mistake that landlords make is they actually, and when I did the research to find this, it took me forever to find the people who knew this. They lost their properties, not because expenses went up, but because their rent didn't. They pretty much across the board said, I didn't want to raise the rent and lose a good tenant. Well, derp. They lost a good asset instead, which is why I end up usually buying properties with tenants in place. They didn't want to raise the rent. So I don't raise the rent. I have the binder strategy to do that. If you're new to my channel, if you haven't seen my channel before, I have a free course at diontalk.com. So there's a paid one and a free one. So click on the free one. It's called the binder course. It's how my tenants ask me to raise the rent, and they're happy when I agree. So since I solved the problem of getting the rents raised, I don't care that property taxes go up. I don't care that insurance goes up. My insurance tripled. I had insurance for $900 on a place. I moved out and it went down because when you move out of a house hack, your insurance goes down. They're no longer insuring your stuff. It doesn't go up because it becomes a rental. And now it's $2,700. This is a few years later. It's basically tripled. It's actually tripled. And I don't care, don't know. because it's $2,700 over the year. And the rents on a fourplex, where tenants ask for a $400 to $600 a month increase, times four, times 12, is so much exponentially larger profit margin than the insurance and the taxes going up that, yeah, things cost more. I'll hear it and I'll see it in every landlord group ever. Don't raise the rent unless you increase the value. Did you update the did you add square footage? Did you? No. Rents are exactly the same today as they were in 1950, 1990. Rents have never changed. Price of a property has never changed. What's happened is our dollar loses value. Our dollar's down to about 3% of the buying power that it had when it started. So, do we think rents went up because it takes more currency to pay for the rent or more currency to pay for the property? Yes. But the value of that transaction hasn't changed. So, even if you don't update a property and even if you don't add square footage, inflation makes the rent take more currency. So that's what I would do. I would plan for appropriate rental increases. I don't want to be at market rents or above unless I've done a rehab, but I'll see people fall behind because they'll go small increase or no increase for years. And then people tend to lose the property. Freedom works. The greatness of the Dion lies in the future. Nice. Protests never last. Capitalism does. There you go. I love the way you put it. Okay. Protest never last. Capitalism does. That's like a title to a video. If I was a stock guy, that's what I'd be doing right now. And then Dark Spring took back a message to make me lose sleep and wonder forever and ever what was happening. Oh no. All right, where we were here. My chat moved. Sorry when that happens. I know people don't like dead space on YouTube. We're here to be entertained, but we're also here to learn. Four evictions means something is going wrong. Yeah, I would say the same thing, but it's a long story. But yeah, two of them. One was we knew it was going to be when she was buying it. Another one was a family divorcing and moving out of state. Uh, and yeah, just she's got the curse. Howdy, Jared. Thank you, Theodore. Jared, howdy, y'all. Just saying hey and hitting like for the algo. Thanks. Thanks for that. REI Jared is a out-of-state investor who invests by the room, does the co-living. Cracked canvas. Nailed it. Thank you. Harsh reality to fire backdrop. Oh, that's a good guess because there is a backdrop. This is real. It's not a Zoom thing. This is from the Forgotten Realms because I'm an absolute nerd. This is a gift from old guy REI. One more trespasser and my wind chime is complete, but I was pointing here at this thing that my finger's touching. Wealth with rentals. How do you list a house that has an ADU for rent, focusing on the main house for now? Do you list it as a Douglas? And what do you do right in the description? So I don't know what a Douglas is. I just list it as a rental. Make sure all my units have their own address. So that makes it a little easier. In the description, I just described this is a house. If it's the ADU, I describe that this is you can use a description that would work in your area if it's an attached ADU or DADU or an apartment part of it. Just make the listing and don't overthink it. Remember, it seems like wealth you're trying to think as an owner, how would I describe this? The tenant's going to go, how many bedrooms? Is there parking? How far from my work? How far from the school? Now you can put in some things like, here's the attractions of the parks that you can walk to, or the lake that's in the distance, or the mountain view, or the whatever you have. You can all put all that in there too. But we think in age of building, square footage, the way it's laid out. None of that matters to the tenants. How many bedrooms? How much parking? How far from work? How far from school? Try not to overthink it. I would just list it. Ain't that the beetle off of the mummy? Nope, that's good. No, it's a good guess. ML, Dungeons and Dragons. That's the map. That's there, but not what I was touching. That's on the map. Gold ring with opal. Hey, that's good. Arlen, that's a good guess. It's you have to think super nerd. What would a nerd have on the wall behind him? Harsh reality to I'll even give a hint. If nobody gets it after a while, I'll give a hint. And it's for a free Audible book, so it's not like you don't get millions of dollars if we nobody guesses it. Uh, Hello from Los Angeles. Janet Santiago. Howdy. Very sorry you live in California. I grew up in the high desert. I wanted out of the desert so bad, I joined the Marine Corps. And they put me in 29 Palms, Saudi, Kuwait, Bosnia, everywhere where there's just dirt. I was like, why am I in the desert? Got out of the Marines because I got the Enemy Marksmanship Award and looked at the country and said it rains in Washington and moved here and been here ever since. Told my mom, if you want me to go to California for your funeral, it ain't going to happen. If you want me at your funeral, you're going to have to come to Washington and die. Uh, Harsh reality to fire. Howdy. Could you please explain the range of credit score? I have mine set to 680, having problem finding anyone above 650. I want 700, but would take 680. How big is the drop? 680 to 650. So there's probably not much of a difference between 650 and 750, right? They've started to pay attention to their credit, so you might be okay with that. I would look at credit history as well. Under 680, like, so I require 700 credit score. I have a small portfolio. I'd rather have it empty. I've not had the problem, but I'd rather have it empty than put somebody in there that's not, because I don't check income. I don't check criminal history. I just check credit score and eviction history and how they interact with people during the open house inspection when they come through for a tour. But if it was below like 680, I'd start thinking, okay, how about a cosigner? Somebody else in your family whose signature will be notarized on the lease who cosigns with you. Solve this solution by getting somebody in there, by giving them a workaround. Some states will allow you to do a larger deposit if you have to take a lower credit score. Be consistent. Don't do it because you like the size of their family, which is a protected thing. You can't discriminate for or against or their gender or their any of that kind of stuff. It's can you find a cosigner that also meets your criteria? And Millennial Mike says in Gary, Indiana, if their credit score is above 600, they just buy a house. In Washington State, people with 850 credit scores renting. High credit score doesn't mean that they're going to buy a house here. So it could be dependent on your market, but that's my solution for credit scores. I've got some tenants that didn't have the 700 I require, so they've got a notarized signature of a cosigner on the lease and have had zero problems. Thank you. That's for sure. Martin Properties. How many properties of yours have septic, and do you add the septic treatment every 6 months or have your tenants do it? That's a great question. I'm literally 50-50 for septic, for sewer. I've had one septic system replaced, cost me about 17 grand. Uh, I've had one other one. All right, I'm gonna just say this. This is YouTube. I'm transparent. I don't have the memory to lie. Ready? I have to get some TBI issues, so I just say transparency. So don't sue me, bro. I have a property with a septic system that went in 1991 that was pumped in 2007 and has never been touched. No treatments, no clogs, no jams, no drains, no pumping, no nothing. Everybody's like, oh, you got to do it every 3 years. You got to blah, blah, blah. No, no. When there's an issue, I'll take care of it. 90% of my issues, like the 17 grand I spend on septic, people go, oh, that's why I have sewer. It's so much more important. I've spent about $600,000 on sewer the years that I've had my properties because you have a monthly fee in the hundreds. Anytime there's a root problem, it's going to be on the pipes on my side. I've had more yard work done with excavators on sewer lines than anything else at my properties. Uh, I prefer septic every time. If I could, if I had I buy the deal that makes sense. So I like washer dryer hookups. I like side by side units. I like blah, blah, blah. I've got this list of things I like, right? I bought the one I'm in. It's an up down because everything else checked the box. So nothing is a 100% deal breaker, deal maker. I prefer septic. So much less problems. Even the one I ripped out and replaced for 17 grand is less than the sewer expenses for a few years at one of my duplexes that's on sewer. So maybe add the treatment. Maybe my septic systems are just the magic special ones that don't have issues. I have one. What did I have an issue with one? I had one, I had it pumped, and then I had it pumped, and I was like, okay, so there could be something to this septic system suck. Then we found that every time that the tenants or the neighbors or whatever drove over this one part of the yard, they had broke an underground water pipe that was basically city water filling my what do you call it? It's not drain system, my leach line. It's like, oh, it's not really a septic problem. It's a broken water pipe problem. But for a second, I had some doubt, right? Because I don't make a decision and then find evidence to back it up. I look at the evidence and then formulate a decision from that or an opinion. Oculus, howdy. Good to see you here. I have a unit turning over at the end of the month, a good bit of interest, but have trouble finding an applicant in the 600s. There you go. Market specific. Correct. Canvas. Howdy. Good evening. Thanks for everything you do and teach. It's really appreciated and helpful. And man, Google Lens doesn't even know where the hell that thing is you pointed to on your map. Nice. Ha. Good try though, because I didn't say you couldn't cheat. Harsh reality to fire. If you know the game he plays, you might know the area on the map. It's not an area on the map, it's something stuck on the map. Andres Matos, howdy. Have you paid for a new roof for any of your properties? Yes, three. I saw that they have this metal roofs and look like regular shingles, but it's more expensive. Do you just go with the cheap ones? I don't go with the expensive ones either. No, I'm in Washington State. I know some people are going to metal roofs, but it rains so much in Washington. I've been in some places that have the metal roofs, and I don't like the sound. I like the pitter patter of rain on the whatever you call it, composite. Is that what it is? Probably shingles or the trees. When I moved to, if you live in the desert, this is the coolest thing. When I moved to Washington, I didn't know trees rained. Grew up in the desert. Rain is just water falls out of the sky. So I'm in Washington, one of my first years here, heavy downpour. I'm inside, and all of a sudden, clouds part, sun comes out, and I walk outside. I'm standing in the sun, no rain's hitting me, and I could hear rain. And I look around and it's like, what? Why am I hearing rain? I'm dry. I'm standing here, I'm dry. After the rain, the trees rain for about 30 minutes. I didn't know that was a thing. But yeah, so I haven't done metal roofs because I don't like the sound. And maybe they've got a new one that doesn't sound as bad. I see a lot of metal roofs in the area, so they do the 50-year warranties on a lot of them. I do 30-year warranty on the ones that I use. I use a company from Yelm, Washington called Clearview Exteriors, and even though he's done three roofs for me, it's still competition when it comes to quotes for roofing. I always get three quotes. And so far, Scott and his team done a great job on every single one. Best quote, same materials, happy customers. They nice with the customers, clean up the mess. Everything's good. Harsh reality to fire. I was going to say bullet hole. No, that was in my fourplex in Spanaway, Washington. I went to Gary, Indiana to look at Millennial Mike's entire portfolio. We went around, filmed videos in front of everything, and I had my pretty much one and only viral video on Instagram. I made a joke. I was talking, I did a short and I came out walking and I said, you don't know in Indiana if your rent is cheap because the market's down or if the rent is cheap because there's a bullet hole in the peephole. And I point, and the bullet hole has been shot through the peephole. And I says that might be why the rent is low here. That went a little viral. I come back from Gary, Indiana after making a joke and picking on my friend Mike, what friends do apparently, and found a bullet hole in my closet where I was house hacking. It's like, what was great is it took out some silk shirts I bought in Thailand, and I'm like, okay, that sucks. It's this far from my pirate outfit because I'm a flying spaghetti monster minister, and I do weddings for free in Washington State. So if you're getting married in Washington, you want your wedding done for free, I'll facilitate it. You just have to be okay with a pirate showing up. The bullet was like this far from my pirate suit. That would have, I think it would have sucked. A pirate suit with a hole in it might have been a better story anyway. Oliver, howdy. Just curious, if your rental doesn't have a garage, would you add a carport or added value? I haven't done that. I have once without either. Tenants happy to stay long term are the first value added things that you do right away. So I have not added a carport or a garage. I have turned a carport into a bedroom. Uh, I get more rent from my properties that have a carport than my properties that have a garage, but neither one of those are the value add proposition that I would spend my money on. I haven't yet, at least. So it could depend on your area. If you're in a super hot desert where cars bake and people, I mean, it matters. In Washington, it matters because people like to get out of their car and be able to walk through the carport without waiting for a garage door to get in the house without getting wet. But the way to tell somebody in Washington State, where there is no R in Washington, is if they have an umbrella. If you live in Washington, I don't know hardly anybody who owns an umbrella. Tourists do because they've seen all the movies, and it's illegal to make a movie in Seattle, Washington without saying that it's raining outside. I was an extra in a few films filmed here. Get Carter, Highway. I don't know what the third one was. I don't know. It was a little billion years ago. So no, I wouldn't add a carport or a garage. Haven't yet. I did convert a carport to a bedroom, so that was one. Bedrooms get way more rent than anywhere you can put your car will matter. Brian, howdy. Did you take a nap after the live stream? I went to take a nap, so I got distracted by a girl because I'm retarded. And then I took a short nap in the afternoon. It's a rough day. Like, I don't like to pull an all dayer. Naps are amazing. I didn't sleep last night. So I got this. This solved a lot of problems for me. I do a lot of VR gaming, and this is a controller charger. So I've been in Fallout VR a lot. I wish I could say I was out clubbing or something, but nope, I was just playing VR all night. Uh, can you explain that? Okay. The Scorpion, can you explain more about the socialism tax? If I'm not mistaken, you or the lumberjack landlord mentioned it's an additional fee for having 800 plus credit score. Yeah, Zuber was talking about that years ago. I think it's a California thing. I don't know enough because I don't follow finances. I just wanted to not have to work. Like that was my simple goal. Uh, there was it credit score? It was when you go to get a loan, you had a fee, an extra fee if your credit score was above a certain point. It's been months, if not years, since they talked about that. Uh, yeah, good stuff. I don't know if it's socialism. It's everything is directed at the middle class, whether it's socialism or capitalism. The middle class gets screwed. Poor people get free stuff. EBT, housing subsidies, child daycare subsidies, earned income child tax credit, free healthcare if you're, poor or indigent, like all this free stuff. If you're rich, you have assets that pay for your stuff. You have a tax incentive program, right? We have a sin tax. They don't want you to smoke, tax it. They don't want you to drink alcohol, tax it, which that sucks. They shouldn't do that. They don't want W-2 employees. It's the highest taxed way of making money. Is to make working for money is the dumbest way to do it. We all have to. And if you do it right, we all have to for about 10 years. But what do we have? A tax incentive that says, hey, Elon, give yourself $1 salary because we would just tax your salary. I mean, he wrote a $11 billion tax check, so he pays his taxes, but it's not on earned income. It's the middle class. It's the person making 150 or $200,000 a year, or the couple that's making that, that's going to pay the taxes, not get that free healthcare, not going to get Section 8, not going to get EBT, not going to get child daycare subsidies. Uh, so it's not socialism or capitalism. It's just everything is designed to attack the rich. And the thing that everyone forgets, rich people ain't stupid. You build a system, they're going to go, okay, what are they trying to get me to do? They need entrepreneurship, they need industry, they need innovation, they need housing. I'll invest and spend my time on these things and pay zero taxes. Right. Most of my life, I made around $60,000 as a truck driver or as a cop. Maybe as a cop, probably like, because this was 2001 to 2009 ish, uh, way less than 60 grand. Um, and I always paid taxes. The last 3 years in a row, I've profited more than $200,000 off of rental income profit. That's after setting aside for future repairs, maintenance, and vacancies, after principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And that's how much rental income tax I've paid. We have a tax incentive program. So the wealthy person doesn't care about that little extra fee, but the middle class person who's worked really hard to get their credit score up is going to pay that. R. Freeman, howdy. Dennis, meowdy. Oliver, if your lender is offering a 10-year ARM, nope, period, done, done talking. There are some exceptions, and ARMs, and I'll cover them too. With 6% interest incentive and looking to buy down a point to make a 5.5 with hope to refinance within 10 years, would you risk it or still do 30-year fixed? I'd do 30-year fixed if the 10-year ARM was 0%. I don't do ARMs. And that's probably not logical. It's because I'm very sorry, but I caused the 2008 housing crash. I owned a house that had an adjustable rate, went underwater. Luckily, kept the property, but that was the reason that that happened. It wasn't that people were, uh, well, they were buying things they shouldn't, but they were over levered. They had adjustable rates, like that. We had over 51% adjustable rate interest loans in 2007. We've been all the way down to 3%. We're up to like 8 now. Uh, the people who should do an arm is somebody like the lumberjack landlord or Michael Zuber. You have 100 plus units, hundreds of thousands of cash flow every month, and one or two properties you buy to where if the rate adjusted, you would just write a check and pay off the loan. There are arms where the problem with 2007 is you can have a rate at 4% and then it would adjust to 14%. There was no limit in some of the loans on how high they can go. Now, some were 1, 2, so they can go up 2% and then 1%. So there were some with restrictions. So there are arms now where you can buy down the rate and get it for like 1 year, it's at a lower rate and then it goes up, but it's limited how much it can go up. And then one more year it goes up and it's limited how much it goes up. And you get all that in writing in your loan. Maybe it makes sense. I am adjustable rate mortgage averse. It's a good question. No, and no one answer. Like every situation is unique. It could make sense. I think the chance that it makes sense is pretty small, but it's there. Charles, howdy. I think that the thing is an Irish pennant. Very close. The real mystery is how well you can talk while drinking. And Jello, I get lippy. What would you do with cash in the Midwest? If I had cash to invest, it depends on what you call cash, a couple 100,000. I still would buy with mortgages. I want levered appreciation, levered depreciation. I would invest where I knew the markets. I would invest for cash flow, not appreciation. You will get appreciation, but I want the levered depreciation. That is how I make hundreds of thousands in profit without paying rental income tax. I'm depreciating millions in properties, even though I've personally, out of my W-2, only invested 320,000 and then 300,000 from rent. So I'm total invested 620,000, but I'm depreciating a $7 million portfolio, the buildings, not the total value. Always work with a CPA. They know how that stuff works. We don't need to. We just need to know that Congress is full of people who own properties who keep making laws that benefit people who own properties. And it's so weird. What are the odds? That's for here in Victorville. I drove through Victorville, I want to say 100 times because I was stationed at 29 Palms. Mom still lived out in Roseman, so I'd make it out there almost every weekend and drive through Victorville at about 130 miles an hour on my bike. It's like, yep, that was Victorville. There it went. Almost had a rabbit take me out. Uh, I can drink. So, talk while drinking has a limit. Sometimes further into the drinking during a thing, we get the overshares, and some people like the overshares, but I probably lose subscribers. One thing I've learned as a veteran is try not to tell jokes. You lose friends that way. Uh, Dennis, if you have a property with 5 bedrooms and there are no other 5 beds within the immediate area and the maybe a few within 50 miles, what is a good way to analyze the pros of a rent increase for that scenario? So in a rent study, whether it's 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom, house with ADU, trailer, it doesn't matter. You want to find the local comparables or the most similar comparables. So the first thing I would do, Dennis, is if you're looking at a property, find the local work hub. So let me go if I go like this. So this is Tacoma. I would never own in city limits of Tacoma. So the red zone, that's my no-no zone, wherever the city of Tacoma is. But this is a work hub. Seattle is a work hub. Let's say you owned right here in Lake Hood, and this was your 5 bedroom house, and there's none right around it for rent. Draw a circle, the same equidistant markets from the work hub that you're close to. Do you see any that have the commute to the work hub to the port that you might have? Now, Lakewood has the base. You might draw a circle around the base going the other way. and think, okay, how comparable is that? Then think, what does BAH pay? I generally use an E5 for what basic allowance for housing around the base will pay. 5 kids, hopefully they're old enough to be a higher rank than an E5. So maybe look at E7 or O2. What does Section 8 pay? It goes up to 4 bedrooms on the HUD fair market rents. You can literally just go the fair market rents website, look up 2025. I'll just go to my market, Washington, Pierce County. What the hell? There we go. Words are hard. So efficiency is like a studio or by the room for Section 8. This is a 1 bedroom where they get the whole place. This 2 bedroom, this 3 bedroom, this 4 bedroom. You can just kind of do the math on 5 bedroom. You can contact your housing authority and say, what would you guys pay for a 5 bedroom? What's your limit? They might not tell you. They might just say, you've got to figure that out, which is their most common thing. But if you could think, it's, what is this? $800 difference between 2 and 3. Um, this is pretty cool for my 2 bedrooms. This is 100 or so less than what I'm getting for my 2 bedrooms in the area. But now it's 400 to here. So each bedroom doesn't give you the same increase. You can kind of run the math on what you would think to be one higher than that. But draw that circle around the economic driver that's going to be the source of the tenants that you have and think, okay, can I find another 5 bedroom in this area? And sometimes you might just list it high, let it sit and have to come down. Or you might list it and get too much interest and have to take it down and put it back up. It's not a perfect system. It's not perfect math. It is just how I do it. Chester said the wealth building journey, donating for a clue. Zero idea what is on the map. Nice. Oh, the clue. It's from a TV series where over 80% of the actors from that show are no longer alive. And that show came out after Star Trek: The Next Generation. Good luck. Bill, I have a property with 5 bedrooms. Yeah, that's what I would do there. Fab Shop Supply. Howdy. What is your ideal debt to equity position in your properties? Thinking of it as a risk factor. That's exactly how I look at it. I don't look at it as how it affects my net worth. I look at it as though in growth mode, when I was actively trying to grow the portfolio without being over levered, I wanted about 70% loan to value. So if I had $1 million property I was buying, I would want to put $300,000 down or put 20% down, put $200,000 and then not really add any debt until my appreciation and principal pay down got me to that percentage that I wanted. So I was targeting 70%. It's never perfect. That was the goal. When I retired and I walked away from that drug that kills our dreams, the paycheck, and I no longer had the security that comes from having a paycheck, my target goal is a 50% loan to value. I've overshot a bit because I did a BRRRR and I haven't refinanced out yet. So I'm probably less than 30% LTV. So $7 million portfolio, $1.5 million in debt. What's the math? I'm probably going to add $400,000 or $500,000 in debt. So I'm not taking out equity. I'm adding debt to get that ratio closer to 50%. Either buy a cash out refinance on the one that I purchased all cash, or buying another property with my VA loan, which I haven't used yet, and being 100% levered on that property because it's not buy the property for me, right? Their first property and your second property pretty much is buy the property. But as your portfolio grows, I'm looking at a complete aggregate loan to value of the total properties. Thanks for that question. Paul, howdy. If you didn't live in Washington State, what other places most appeals to you? I've been struggling with this one. I like investing in a blue state because the landlord laws suck, so I have less competition. It's harder to build so that it causes more appreciation, which I've not even used yet. Uh, Rent control is going to force me to triple how much money I make. Like all of these reasons why I prefer a blue state over a red state to invest. To live, I think everybody should carry a gun. I think like a lot of my personal life lines up with red state beliefs. So I don't know if I want to stay in Washington. I like the weather. What's kept me here mostly is I don't know if this is something that stuck with me from the Marines or an abusive dad, but I'm in a kind of perpetual survival mode, right? I know the vectors of fire from my house. I know the choke points. I know the points of entry. I know all the things I need to know to be safe when I'm in my places. It's probably not normal. But I also know no indigenous poisonous snakes. Only one thing called the brown recluse spider, which is not lethal. It's just very poisonous to an adult. We don't have that many hurricanes. I've seen one tornado the entire time I've lived here, and it was tiny. It hit like three houses. Earthquakes are rare. I live on the Puget Sound, which is an inland ocean, so we don't have the fear of tsunami hitting here. Like very few things in Washington, other than the girls I've dated, will try to take me out. In every other state I've looked at, there are states where you will die if you get locked outside in the winter. You will die if you don't have enough water in the direct sunlight. You will die if you go swimming with the alligators. You will die with the pythons. You will die with the spiders. You will grew up in Southern California, right? We would keep king snakes in our house to keep the rattlesnakes out. We Everything's trying to eat you everywhere, but in Washington, I haven't found a place where the weather is tolerable. It's not as warm as I would like. I do like the rain, but it's not as warm as I would like. The scuba's murky, so I travel a lot. I just got back from Portugal. Not murky there. Headed to Scotland. I don't know if I'll scuba there. Don't know much about their waters, but I'll be going to Thailand for the winter. Scuba's awesome. So I can travel to the places that I enjoy, but where I want to relax and live without that I don't want to call it hypervigilance. That's what the VA would call it. They don't know everything. Uh, they probably do. It's that I'm at peace in Washington. If I could find a state where I was at peace, where I didn't feel like there was enough threats in the environment, I would probably consider moving there. As far as investing, uh, where would I invest outside of Washington? I've looked in Arizona, I've looked in Idaho, found deals in Arizona. Didn't end up doing that because the school I was working at, the CDL school, didn't end up putting a campus there. I would consider parts of Florida and Texas. Again, they're not blue states, so parts of California. If I could invest there without ever having to go to it, probably. But no part of the country calls to me like Washington does. What about your area calls to you? Correct canvas. Did you move or decide Washington State because of how much properties increase in value? I didn't choose it because of how much they increase in value. I actually chose it, one, because I'm the trusted boots on the ground here. I already lived here. I wanted to invest locally. I didn't invest because the property values go up a lot. I wanted to invest here because the property values were already up. I wish my properties cost more. Not were worth more after I owned them, but cost more when I bought them. And I'll use Millennial Mike as the example because that's what friends do. He buys a rental in Gary, Indiana. It's like 60 grand, either 60 grand for a turnkey. They're like 100 now, so don't get sticker shock when you go there. I'm talking when he started 5, 6 years ago. Or he buys it for 28 grand and puts 30 grand into it. So he owns a property, rents it out to Section 8. Section 8 rents like $1,100. Uh, he's got property management, property taxes, setting aside for future repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So he's probably making $250 to $350 on that property. I take the same $60,000 and I put it down on a duplex in Washington, and I make $2,000 in profit. 8 properties, 18 units, $242,000 in profit last year. Most months it was 21,000. I had some things that I dealt with where I was getting the rents up and it wasn't 21,000 in profit every month, but towards the end of the year, that's what it was. This year, that's what it's looking at so far, if not more, because rent control. Thanks. Uh, yeah, I wanted to invest in a high cost of living area so that I can get, this is my sentence, the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. Dion isn't pulling an all dayer. Don't do that without a nap is no bueno. Jason, I just bought a Meta S3 as a reward for getting my last property. Have not had time to play with it yet. So if you get it, I don't know if you're into MMOs, Jason, but there's a couple. Zenith died. It was the best one. Is the best massive multiplayer online VR game. But they've stopped backing it. Orbis is okay, but I live for connect to a PC. So you'll want to get. So if you have the three, get one of these cords. It's like a C to C cord, but they're more, I don't know, they're more expensive. It'll cost you like $20 to connect to a PC and then do VR Skyrim or VR Fallout. That's where I end up spending more time awake than I do in the real world currently. Beat Saber's good for exercise. There's a couple of others that are good exercise ones, but I'm a nerd. That's what they are for. Josh Burdick, are those brass casings? They sound pretty in the breeze. They do, yes. That's one more one more trespasser, and my wind chime is complete. Thanks, Frank. All Night Hider. '08 was not a housing crash. Housing was a symptom of a global economic collapse. Carry on. There you go. And what was also adjustable rates hitting at the time of that 51% adjustable rates was an issue. Yeah. We were a Bravo 1-4. Nice. 1989. I was in 1989 too, Charles. I was 88 to 94. Got to play in the desert. And it's so weird. And it sounds so dumb to say, but we're still in the desert. Gavin, howdy. Cash in Midwest depends on can you still get good financing, plenty of places to buy, and get your good systems in place, kind of good team, good contractors, not get ripped off. Josh, are you planning on going to any concerts in your retirement? I can't wait for that. Nice. I am not a music guy. I'm tone deaf. So I like music that makes a sound I can't imitate. So OTEP, listen to OTEP all day long. Regina Spektor. Talk about a spectrum of music choices to listen to. So if Regina Spektor comes back to Washington, I might go. Not much of a music guy, not much of a crowd guy, so I'm not into the concerts. What do I enjoy in retirement? Scuba and travel. That's what I was looking forward to. So, Josh, I have the healthcare triplex, the vehicle duplex, the vodka fourplex, the traveling duplex. Sounds like you need the concert duplex. Have an asset for every expense and actually make a plan for that so that you have a reverse budget. I know you went off to work, but I'll text this to you later. Josh will have a reverse budget where he must spend X amount of dollars every month on going to concerts. And that means if he takes 1 month off, next month it's twice as much. Nicole, howdy. Is there any age that my kids have to be for being my employees? I don't believe so. That is more of a CPA, choose FI type question where people work the system to do the uh, tax write-offs and contribute to their IRAs and those kind of things. Uh, don't think so. Not if it's familial. Josh, they go. Flavio, on the map is the next trip of Dion. Nice. Matt asked me that one time. Asked me, I was like, am I going to this? He named them, and I had no idea what he was talking about. Because I know where the books happened, like Baldur's Gate, Waterdeep. Like I could name those cities, but he was naming some map city, which they put all those on there for the people who run their own campaigns. It is not. Charles just looked at an off-market 3-2 with two car for 35K tonight in my backyard. Needs a lot. Uh, he raps. Nice. No. Cool. How is it? SG1. That's a good guess. Because that did come out after. But most of those actors are still alive. I think. Yeah. Well, definitely a higher percentage of them than the video or the series that this is from. And it's from there. You got to zoom in really close. I didn't make it easy. Paul, what are your top three most influential video games in your life, not including WoW? That was it. Fallout VR, Skyrim VR. You need a third though. I played Pantheon. If you want to hit that, it feels like EverQuest 1999. Pantheon right now is a good game for that. Doesn't mean it's a good game, right? I'm not like endorsing it. I'm just saying it was good for hitting that feeling of what did it feel like to get in a map where you knew where nothing was, everything progressed kind of slow, and auto attacks actually had an impact on combat. CJ, howdy. E&E routes. Nice. I have to figure out what that is. D&D routes? No. Farscape? No, it's another good guess. Flavio. What I heard, you can use your VA as many times as you want. So yes and no. You have a certain amount of entitlement, but you can use it more than once. And if you refinance out of it, you can, I believe, I have not used my VA loan yet. I have a couple of reasons why. Uh, get your entitlement back by refinancing out. Not sure how it all works. That's why step 3 in my course is covering all that stuff that you do with a lender. Anybody who buys the course, just so you know right now, that gives me a good reminder. If you're in the course, I'll probably send out an email. Uh, Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific, if you're in the Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person course, we have Cody Davis. He's going to spend some time with us. Next Tuesday, 6 o'clock after the live stream, we have Christian from Multifamily Strategies going to spend some time with us. I'm working out time for Millennial Mike and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord to be joining us too. If there's anybody else you'd like to see in the course, let me know. And then we'll have one work where we do not record the session and we talk about all the gray area sketchy stuff that will get us sued. And anybody who's buying the course, there's somebody who bought the course yesterday, this month. Anybody who buys the course gets a free 1 hour Zoom one-on-one, and then probably a follow-up Zoom for free. Because I had somebody recently they block out an hour call, so they got the course for free because it's about the same. Uh, there's my sales pitch. An hour and 36 minutes into this before I mentioned anything that can make me money. So I feel bad doing that. Don't like it, but it's a good barrier to keep out the people that are just trolls. Uh, Oliver, what are your thoughts on buying tile roof? Not in Washington. Possibly adding solar panels on the roof later. Don't like solar panels. Don't like that their carbon footprint. I'm going to share my screen because I did it again. This is what YouTube looks like right now. How am I supposed to work with that? Hit refresh and it loaded. Yay, there we go. Okay. Let me deconstruct that segue. I don't want the solar panels and wind turbines don't replace their impact uh, by the time that they've been outdone. And then the cost to do a roof is removing them and replacing them, the cost to sell, depending if there's any debt left. There's like a bunch of reasons why. I also live in Washington State where we get the sun 3 days a year. So solar might not make as much sense here as it does in another state. I don't like tile roofs. Um, Mostly just composite. Do I have anything that's not composite? Composition, not composite, it's composition. I told you about my memory issues. Uh, and I have memory issues, not like I forgot my kid at soccer practice. No, it's like every now and then I go, oh my God, I have 3 kids. Wonder how old they are. Um, Angel R. Hola, ¿cómo está usted? Once you pay off mortgages debt while you find the next deal. Nope. Nope. The last thing I want is debt paid down. I worked really hard to get my good debt. I want the levered appreciation and levered depreciation that comes from that. And I don't want a penny going to pay down that debt. My tenants will pay it off over time. I accidentally paid off one and it cost me $1 million. Not again. Not even in retirement mode. I'm not to the point of paying off debt yet. It could make sense if you're 70 and you just don't want any more properties and you got to do something with the money and you could pay off the debt. It doesn't increase your cash flow, the amount that investing that money in a new rental would, because you get a new depreciation schedule that's going to allow you to make more money without paying taxes. You get new levered appreciation. There's more income in buying a rental than there is in paying off a rental. My internal rate of return on buying a rental, a bad rental that only got like a 5% cash on cash return, is a 26% IRR. Paying off a mortgage, all you're going to do is get an internal rate of return of the interest you're saving. That's crabby. So I wish I had the brains to put that into a video that made sense. Dennis sent you an email about the fiber. Harsh reality, Golden Girls, I think, are all gone. Nice. That was way before, I believe it was way before Star Trek: The Next Generation. Uh, they were all 50-ish. I used to love watching the Golden Girls. There you go. Wolf Building Journey. I'm going to go guess that's something with Stargate SG-1. Total lag. All right. So I'm at the end of the chat, so I'm going to say this right now. Nobody got the book today, so I'll have to try that again next week. Uh, Babylon 5. Okay. Dennis, you just kind of threw out a shotgun though. It's I don't know if that's cheating or not. But can you name what it is from Babylon 5? Dennis, if you could do that right now, tell me the name of it. You get the Audible book. I'll give you a minute. Get this to Nicole. If you pay your kids less than 600, you don't have an issue. 1099. My older kids clean gutters, pressure washers. I don't think that might be the impetus to the question, Oculus. I don't think I'm using that word the way it's supposed to be. But catalyst, cause, reason. Words are hard. Why do people do that? My mom was a Port Gallo drinker, so I a tribute, make a tribute to her by drinking it. Oh my God, it's gross. After mortgage and experience, what do you try to minimum cash flow? 24 Hills, that's a great question. Ah, are there any wine drinkers here? Why do you do that to yourself? It's the solstice beetle. Ding, ding, ding. Nope. Emerald medallion. Can't remember. Nope. All right. So it's from the Anla shock. The real nerds will know what a ranger pin is and how hard it was to find a green one. They only make the blue ones, which didn't exist in the show. I'm a nerd. I've told you. Still get the book, Dennis. Good guess, even though it was a shotgun blast. So you can let me know the next members or course call that you're in. It doesn't have to be one of the books on finance. It'd be cool if it was, but you can literally pick any Audible book you want. Let me know, and I will send it to you. Emperor Carthaginian necklace. Nice. Now that would be way bigger and it would be cooler looking, but no, it's a Ranger pin. Uh, the wine almost killed me. You still fitting MAGA hats at your side hustle? Nice. Dividend day, are you still selling that? Nice. Can only take a thimble of port, whiskey and water. No, for me, it's almost always vodka in Mountain Dew. That's the drink. Uh, oh, Dennis, nice, cool. You didn't even know you were winning a book, but you won a book. Cool. Sorta. I'm just giving you the book. This it was a random guess. I think there was a question I was doing here. Oh, the kids. I think the point of the question was how much can I pay my kids so my taxes are less, and how much can they contribute to their retirement account so they don't have to incur taxes? There's a lot of playing with the money there that people do that are it's done legally. And I'll probably be wrapping the video up with that. If you are a member, there will be another members call this coming weekend. Like I said, since I didn't do the ones in Portugal, we'll be doing more than two this month. And that's where we learn the skill of analyzing a deal. It takes about 45 minutes to learn a skill that's going to be 3 to 5 minutes in action. And math is one of the last things we do. And it only takes a few minutes out of 45 minutes to learn the math because there's way more to math about knowing if a rental is a good deal or not. I want to make a video saying math doesn't matter or math is the least important thing. Neither one of those are true, so I can't make that video. I only make videos I actually feel, but I want to put that sentiment in the title somehow that so many people are buying rentals based on the math and then going broke because it doesn't have environmental things that keep tenant turnover low. It doesn't have aspects of the property that attract tenants or keep tenant turnover low. It doesn't, it has like all of these things that can make a deal a bad deal that have nothing to do with how much cash flow you're getting. You can find 1% or 2% deals in a war zone all day long. If you're hunting for yield, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. It's an aspect of it. And we don't practice the math till we get it right. We practice it till we can't get it wrong. And so many people practice the math so much, they think it's the part that matters. Hennessy and apple juice is really good. Nice. Once in every couple of years, I will buy I think Hennessy has a like a Christmas version. What's apple cider something something whiskey? I'm not a whiskey guy. I OD'd on whiskey when I was 12. And then that's the best. You got a 12-year-old, get them drunk. Just like puking 3 days, crawling on the floor drunk. They'll probably never drink whiskey again. Don't do that. That's horrible advice. Worked for me though. On me, not on my kids. After mortgage and experience expenses, what do you try to minimum cap if you have too much to drink? So here we are, 24 Hills. There is a video on my channel called the Real Estate Investing Education Timeline. When a person asks a question, it tells me what information I can give. And I equate this to the K through 12, and this will be how I wrap up this video. So this is the last question. Thank you all for hanging out with me. If you've heard this before, have an evening full of marvelous. I will see you Thursday on my next short video that'll be 10 to 20 minutes long for those people who would never click on a 2-hour video. The first question that people ask, 24 Hills, that tells me, and I associate it with K through 12, this doesn't mean I'm calling them a kindergartner or young or anything. It's just that's the timeline we all understand for education. So the kindergarten question is, how many doors do you have? Okay, they've just looked at real estate. Ken McElroy has 10,000 doors. Danielle has 3 or 4. Last time I heard it was 3, but I think she added one. His wife, so Ken McElroy from Rich Dad Poor Dad channel, has over 10,000 units. His wife has 4. You would think he must be more successful. That's the kindergarten just found real estate question. Because what if Ken was losing $500 a door every month? And what if Danielle was losing $500 a door every month? I'd rather lose 2 grand than whatever 10,000 times 500 is. That's a lot. So that tells you they're looking at the count of doors, but they haven't figured out integers yet. Does it have positive income? Does it have negative income? So that question is at the elementary stage. You're past door count. So you've advanced in education, real estate investing, education timeline to how much do you make per door? Because now if Danielle has 4 properties and she loses $500 a door, that's a bad portfolio. If she has a $500 a door profit, so she makes $500 a door, now she's making $2,000 a month in profit. That's better than losing $2,000, right? Well, what if Danielle invested $100 to buy her properties and makes $2,000 a month? That's a great portfolio. It's outstanding. She's getting a massive return on her money, right? What if Danielle invested $10 billion? She inherits $10 billion. She buys 4 properties and she makes $2,000 a month in profit. That's not a good portfolio. That's a really bad return, right? So to go from kindergarten, it's how many doors, to elementary, it's how much do you make per door. Let's take you to high school. High school is where you understand yield, cash on cash return on your money. So I don't want a door count. I actually want the least amount of properties. I want the right amount of cash flow, but I didn't have a lot of money to invest. So it's not how much do I make per door, it's how much return on my money do I get. In my market, I was able to find 7 or 8% return on some deals. Like 20 deals out of 100 would make money. 80 would lose money, but 20 out of 100 would make some money. If I could find 7 and 8s, I hunted for the 10s so that I'm getting the best deal I can find. Some markets, it's 3%, so you look for the 4 or 5. Some markets, it's you'll lose 1%, so you look for the break even or make 1%. It's find the area average, beat it. I was looking for a 10% return. So I had a minimum. I don't want less than $100 a door. I invest in a high cost of living area. So the lowest I've ever had was $400 a door, but that wasn't the target. And it wasn't a metric I was even looking at. I only know that because I've made videos on my portfolio. I was looking for a 10% return. And sometimes I might have been looking for a 9%. Sometimes I might have been looking for a 12%, right? Beating what I was finding in the area average. So that's that education up to high school. None of that tells us to buy or not to buy a property. When you graduate high school, the idea is, do you go in the military? Do you go to college? Do you go start a career? Do you start the family business? You have all these actual choices that you use everything you learned throughout your K through 12. In real estate, it's I'm going to pick a market That has nothing to do with yield. I want to know, go to U-Haul. Are the trucks going there or leaving there? Is the population growing or shrinking? Are there enough economic drivers? Is it a dangerous area? Is it a place that floods all the time? Is it in the lava flow of Mount Rainier? Like you're looking at the actual market, physical aspects of it. Then you're going to look at your strategy. Does your strategy fit there? In Washington, I wanted to buy single family houses. I started saving, working on my credit score, hunting for single family houses. And in 10 years, I've not seen one that cash flowed. So my strategy didn't fit the market that I chose. So I shifted my strategy to small multifamily, which I found ones that cash flow. Then you actually go down to the actual property itself. Does it meet your strategy? Chester, the wealth building journey, for a couple of years in the Washington, D.C. area, wanted to buy 5 or 6 bedroom houses and do rent by the room. A great strategy. What blew up almost every deal was that there wasn't parking or it didn't have a return on money, right? And eventually he was like, yep, I'm just going to go and buy in Detroit, buy property, get on the property ladder and start, because he changed his strategy to meet what would get the return. What he was looking for is financial freedom through real estate, not I want to own properties in DC and rent by the room. That was the strategy that would get the end goal. So he shifted that. I want long-term tenants. If you're doing short-term tenants, does your property have something like a view or a hot tub or something that's going to attract in the right area? And you can do short-term rentals anywhere. I've seen people do it in the middle of nowhere and be just fine. There's a guy, a friend that comes to the local Tacoma FI meetup, and he has an Airbnb in Bonnie Lake, Washington, with really nothing special. He's got a marketing background, and he's always booked because he markets that he's an hour and a half from Mount Rainier, an hour from Seattle, and an hour from the Puget Sound. And he's marketed all these things. People from Washington don't go rent in Bonnie Lake. But if you're coming here from Texas or Florida or New York, and you look at Washington, you go, what would I want to do there? Mount Rainier sounds cool. Puget Sound sounds cool. Seattle's got the waterfront. Oh, this place is like central to all of those, which we call the middle of nowhere. It's also, there's some good sized barns for weddings there, so he probably booked some for that too. But it's a genius strategy to do it in the middle of nowhere. He looked for a property that met his thing. So that's the real estate education timeline. How many doors? How much do you make per door? What's your return? And then how do you pick a rental using all of the criteria that tells you if it's a good or a bad deal? You guys have a week full of awesome. And remember, you can't drink all day unless you start early.